And joining me right now here on a Wednesday to go over the latest on college football. This guy does a great job, especially with his Twitter account. You got to give him a follow. Yes, he's Mark Schipper with Fifth Down CFB. Mark, how you doing today?
I'm doing great, Mark. How about yourself? Thanks for having me on.
Dude, I love this time of year. It's September, full swing of college football. We're going to get to conference games. I know it's been a long offseason. We'll start with this. Are you happy that football is in full swing right now?
You don't even have to ask that one, Mark. Hugely excited the other day, opening weekend Saturday. I was so jacked up as the games were about to get going, I just had to drop and hit a few push-ups just to burn out some of that energy. So, yeah, I'm pumped.
That's awesome, man. That is. Let's start here in the state of Florida. Some of the teams I cover. We'll start with the Florida Gators. Billy Napier, I don't even know if hot seat is the correct term as they're going ready for the game on Saturday against Texas A&M. What do you think of this situation right now with Napier at Florida?
It's not great, and it's not great because they're not making what appears to be steady progress towards the place where Billy Napier says he wants to get the program, and where it appeared when they hired him that he could get the program. So losing their best defensive tackle to Ole Miss on an NIL deal in the offseason was bad. There was a lot of talk about a restructured defensive line even after that loss, and it was going to be a tough line, and it hasn't looked that way. So you add that to his defensive coordinator, Austin Armstrong, and they're replaying his press conference, his kind of infamous press conference from 2 years ago when he went into a lot of coaching jargon and really tried to sound like the smartest guy in the room, and he hasn't looked it on the field. His teams haven't looked it. So I think Napier's in a tough spot. The fans are restless, and it's not great. The good news for Florida is, though, 4 of the next 5 games are very winnable, and the one that I would not say is very winnable is still winnable, and that's the one against Tennessee. So this stretch coming up is huge for Florida.
See, the follow-up to that is, what is the standard then moving forward? We're going to try to survive and maybe try to make a bowl game? Because that can't be the standard, right, for the University of Florida?
No, that can't be the standard. That's way too low. But the season, to use the old cliche, it is what it is. Extremely tough schedule. They have the roster they have. I will say this. I know people are talking about getting rid of Billy right now and maybe almost for certain at the end of the season, particularly if it continues on like it is. But resetting your program every couple of years is a very difficult way to build back. So if Billy shows some growth and his team shows growth over the course of this year and they do make a bowl game, I think you have to really think about whether you want to fire this guy or not or give him another season. But it's just a tough spot for Florida because I know everyone expected Billy to come in and hit the ground running and really get the Gators back quickly, and it hasn't happened, and there's not a lot of patience in college football.
We're here with Mark Schipper talking the latest on, especially right now, about Billy Napier there at Florida. So here's my question. What does a college football coach need to do moving forward? Because it can't just be X's and O's. Does it need to be NIL? Does it mean transfer portal? Because it can't be a coaching philosophy, right, from 15 years ago.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think some people have pointed this out, and I'm kind of in agreement with it without knowing all the details. But Billy came in and basically hired a staff like Nick Saban would have hired in 2011, 2012, a monster staff with all these positions of minutia and doling out money out of Florida's football funds to do it. And I think a coaching staff today probably needs to be a little leaner, a little smarter, actually quite a bit leaner and quite a bit smarter. And those resources and donations and money need to be marshaled for NIL and transfer portal. And then I think the balance a coach has to strike today that is so crucially important is you have to balance your elite high school recruiting with really intelligent use of the portal and your NIL money. So that's what needs to be set up. So I think if Billy can figure that stuff out quickly, trim his staff, recruit the right guys in high school, use the transfer portal responsibly, not lose guys like Prince. I don't even want to try to pronounce his last name right now on the defensive line to Ole Miss. Billy's got a chance, but he's got to make those changes quickly.
Okay, let's switch gears to Tallahassee then, because you look at Mike Norvell. He broke through where, okay, you won 10 games. Then last year, 13-win season, conference champion, should have been in the playoff. And then now you're 0-2 and lose 2 conference games. What happened then with Mike Norvell when you look at him going into this weekend?
Well, 15 players lost off that extremely good national championship caliber Florida State team. I think 7 starters on both sides. And then Mike Norvell, hearkening back to what I just talked about, I think Norvell needs to also find a better balance between elite high school recruiting and his use of the portal. Now, when you lose 15 guys, you could argue that you're in a little bit of a desperate situation going out to get players to replenish. And that's what Norvell did. But the problem with that is these guys are maybe in for the spring, maybe just in for fall camp. So there's a chance with Norvell and Florida State this season that they're just off to a slow start, that they just need more reps, they need more game time. And I think that could particularly be true on the defensive side, though I do have questions about the toughness of the D-line and the talent of the linebackers. They could get better there. I think personally at this point that the investment in DJ Uliagalele, DJU, at quarterback was not a good one. He appears to be the same really mediocre and kind of limited quarterback that he has been for the previous 5 years of his college career. And I'm not sure what Florida State's ceiling is with DJU behind center.
We're here with Mark Schipper. Let's go south. Mario Cristobal with Miami. They're 2-0, got the big win against Florida. Should we congratulate Miami? Like, yeah, you did it. You're back as a real team. Or is it still wait and see in your eyes?
Still wait and see, but they have a great roster. They've got incredible depth at the defensive line, which is forever and probably always will be in football so long as they don't turn it into a different game. A standard for high-level teams is your defensive line and your offensive line as well, and Miami also has an excellent offensive line. They got great skill position players on offense. Their quarterback, Cam Ward, is excellent. I have him as a Heisman contender at this point, a legit one. But for Miami and Mario, the deal is going to be winning these games going forward, winning the ones you're supposed to win, which they did last week, winning the tough ones, and proving that you're a smart football program on the field, which obviously that goes back to practice. But once you get into the games on the field, coaching and playing, are you a smart team? Mario, over the course of his career, has had teams that have lost games they shouldn't have lost, some from playing poorly, and then some from just insanely bad coaching decisions that have cost the team games. So for Miami, it's been too long to just trust Miami to be there. They got to prove it going forward, but they have all the appearance of a high-level program this year.
Okay, the last time they played a national championship game, I was in college. Is that sad to say out loud if I say that?
Well, if you don't actually mention the year, you're cool because people will probably assume it was more recently than it was. So I think just be careful in how you deploy that and you'll be all right.
Look, and I want Miami to be better as a program. I do. It's good for college football. Okay, this is one I've been wanting to ask you for a couple weeks. So Auburn lost over the weekend. They've been on coach after coach after coach. In hindsight, in your eyes, Mark Schipper, should they have kept Gus Malzahn there at Auburn and been a 9-win team every single year?
Yeah, the ancient head coaching question in college football, when you have a guy who wins at a fairly high level. Nebraska had this with Bo Pelini. And you have to look at the details of the program and what's going right and what's going wrong. And, is there a chance to break through or is it deteriorating? It's hard to look back now and say firing Gus Malzahn was the right move. But Auburn shares a state with Alabama, and they have fans that want to have a program with a national title standard. And they have boosters like that, and that's just kind of the attitude in the state. So quietly, Auburn is everyone knows Florida, for example, has pretty impatient fans and wants to win now. Auburn quietly has a very similar fan base and attitude towards football. So they're just impatient down there, and it's not looking great under Hugh Freeze at this point. But, transfer portal, NIL. That stuff can change quickly.
Yes, you're absolutely right. We're with Mark Schipper. We're talking college football here on a Wednesday. All right, you retweeted a great photo from Northern Illinois where they have, what was it, the Boneyard? All the major programs they've beaten. How big of a win was that for Northern Illinois beating Notre Dame?
Oh, monstrous. Going into Notre Dame Stadium for most college football players, the guys who aren't going to play in the NFL, this will probably be the apex of their football career. I played Notre Dame at Notre Dame Stadium. It's for those who haven't been there, if you love college football, you have to go. It is college football iconography at its finest. It's just such a cool setting. And all the history and heritage is really alive there. And for Northern Illinois, Notre Dame was a top 5 team. They were 28-point favorites. They were being talked about as a playoff team after beating Texas A&M. And so it was a hyped game, and it was a hyped crowd. And for NIU to go in there and add Notre Dame to the Boneyard alongside the likes of Alabama, the University of Iowa, University of Nebraska, and several other major programs, it's a huge win for NIU. And I'll tell you what, they straight up won that game. They put nearly 200 yards rushing on Notre Dame, and they possessed the ball for 10 minutes more than Notre Dame's offense. So NIU went in there and really kind of took it to the Irish.
What does it say about the Irish moving forward?
Well, their offense is not looking good at all. I just brought up the 200 yards rushing and some other stuff. Notre Dame struggled to pick up first downs. They struggled to hold on to the ball. They really struggled to score. Notre Dame's defense, even though they gave up yardage and possession time, Notre Dame's defense held NIU to a very reasonable point total. What was it, 17 points? 17-16, I believe the score was. 17 points should be enough for Notre Dame's offense to beat a team like NIU every time. So the fact Notre Dame only put up 16, it really reflects poorly on their offense and their offensive line, and also the quarterback play. Riley Leonard, kind of similar to DJU earlier, he appears to be the guy who was in the ACC. He's a rugged quarterback. He doesn't throw the ball particularly well. And if Notre Dame's not going to play to his strengths, I think you got to look at going to the backup quarterback and pushing the ball downfield. Notre Dame needs to move the ball and score. They have too much talent in that program not to score points.
See, this is why it's week to week, Mark, where they beat Texas A&M hostile environment to open the season. You're like, well, they must be really good. No, it appears we're not sure. Is that how you look at college football? It's week to week with some of these football teams.
Yeah, generally it is, except for the very elite teams. It's almost always week to week. And the other thing is week one to week 2 is sometimes teams make a big jump, other times they don't. The first few games of the season can look totally different than when we move into the second, third, and the final third. Teams can grow a lot. So it is week to week, and you do need to look for growth in teams. Well-coached teams get significantly better as the season goes on.
Okay. You talk about the top elite teams. Is it Georgia and Texas, or am I missing someone in that elite category?
I think you have to add Ohio State. I think Oregon will prove out to be an extremely tough team. Penn State struggled a little with Matt Bowling Green this weekend, but Penn State could be very good. So, but when you're talking about like definitely elite, I think Texas, Georgia, Ohio State are the ones you would put there right now.
Were you shocked by how well Texas beat down Michigan? Because I was. I didn't expect that big of a beatdown. How about you?
I probably didn't expect it to be that much of a thrashing, but as much talent as Michigan has left over, I look at the loss of talent in the coaching staff, which goes to preparation and practice, and it goes to team spirit, team attitude, sort of programmatic identity. And I think Michigan's program was really stripped, in addition to all the great players they lost. We can't leave that up. They lost a ton of talent to the National Football League. But I think Michigan really has been sort of stripped down from the championship identity it had, and it's going to have to rebuild a new identity for these athletes, even if there are some leftovers and a few leftover coaches. So I thought Texas was going to be decisively ahead of Michigan because Texas has just been building to this for a few years now, and Michigan is rebuilding. But, yeah, I would say probably just the precision and the destruction that happened in the Big House was a little surprising.
We're here with Mark Schipper. Does a great job. Follow him on Twitter, Fifth Down CFB. Okay, Ohio State you brought up a second ago. Is this it then for Ryan Day? Hey, there's no Jim Harbaugh. Go win the Big Ten. You should make a deep playoff run.
I don't think it's it for him at all, unless Ohio State has really lost its mind in terms of patience and needing to win now. Ryan Day's had him right there ever since he's got there. He's a first-time head coach, so it can take a few years to figure out how to do it in the huge moments. Season comes down to this kind of games, either games to get into the playoff or the playoff, and you see first-time head coaches build up the wisdom to prepare for those games and win those games after a couple of years. So with the way Ohio State recruits, I understand the impatience because when you look at their roster every year, it's like you could just argue this is the best roster in college football or one of the very best rosters in college football. And you would think with the talent disparities in the sport that means you should win almost every year. And frankly, Ohio State does win and almost win it all just about every year. So they're right there. I think Ryan Day's okay, but this is without question a huge year for him because once more, just about everything's in place for him.
Okay, all the teams you were talking about, it appears with the 12-team playoff, they're all just going to be in, right? Like at the end of the day, there won't be a dispute. You know, Texas, Georgia, Ohio State, like they're all just going to be in, right? Do you like this with the 12-team playoff?
Yeah, I love it. This is excited as I've been for a college football season, probably since the BCS came around in '98 and reorganized the postseason. I thought the BCS gave us a few great games, unquestionably. It messed up a few times, unquestionably. But the critical thing is the BCS didn't solve the problem it was created to solve, which was to figure out an undisputed national champion. The 4-team playoff went further toward doing that, but it messed up in a huge way because it destroyed the rest of the bowl season and retrained the focus of the entire year on a 4-team playoff. And it's no coincidence that in the 4-team playoff was pretty restricted in terms of the numbers of schools, but when you go to the championship game, the CFP championship, it was I put up the numbers a while back. I can't remember exactly what they are, but a preposterously small number of schools competed in the championship game and won the championship game. So the CFP, the BCS and the CFP to me were half measures toward a playoff. And once college football decided to reorganize its postseason and go away from the traditional bowls and take a poll on January 2nd and vote a mythical national champion or split championship, I think they should have gone all the way to a playoff. They just should have ripped off the Band-Aid and done it. And now we're finally there, so I'm fascinated by what's going to happen. It's a very new landscape for college football, and I couldn't be more excited for it.
All right, the follow-up to that is Championship Saturday in December for conference championships. Is that something that matters still for college football?
They all matter because you play 12 games and then the 13th is a championship game. So it's not – football's never going to be a sport like baseball where you got 162 games and you can say some don't matter. And it's not even the NFL where they play 17 and soon to be 18. I mean, it's 12 regular season games and then maybe a conference championship. So they all matter, but there very well could be a discussion in the near future about what to do about conference championships and what role they're going to play in determining a league champion and seeding the playoff. You know, the only one I think it would really hurt the sport in some way to lose is the SEC championship, the original. That game fit so perfectly the culture of the Southeast and the culture of the SEC, and it was so exciting from that first game in '92 between Florida and Alabama and has been generally so great ever since. That is truly a big championship game. The rest of them have kind of been grafted on after the rest of the sport saw how profitable they could be and what a TV audience they get. So it would hurt to lose the SEC championship, but I think there is a conversation upcoming on those games.
Look, I understand you win that game, you get the bye. But like if you're Ole Miss is the example, and I've thought about this all off season, every year at Lane Kiffin, they're going like 10-2. It's like, all right, whatever. All right, so we have to play the first round. We'll get the bye, and we won't have to take on Bama or Georgia. Like, don't you it's kind of weird, right? When you think about it, they'll get the bye, don't have to go to Atlanta, and they'll just get ready for the playoff and get kind of a 2-week bye before that.
I think we're going to see how that works out. It does, when you look at it from that perspective, seem a little strange, but there are advantages and disadvantages to getting that particular bye that you're referring to and who you're going to meet in the playoffs. So winning a conference title is important, not just for the postseason. It's important to college football and to the sort of fabric of the sport. So I still think winning conference championships is going to be important to teams, but it is true there is a safety valve for very good teams that don't win the conference championship, and it could even in some instances work out for them pretty well.
Let's end with this with Mark Schipper. I appreciate you coming on. Heisman, I made this point on Monday, and I want to get your thoughts. I think we're going to have an exciting race this year for the first time in a long time where we got real contenders. You said Cam Ward earlier, but who are your other contenders for the Heisman?
Yeah, I hope you're right about that. I love a good Heisman race, and I like a Heisman race where there's a little bit of positional diversity when we're not just looking at 4 quarterback finalists kind of thing. And so far, my list has a bit of that diversity. I have Quinn Ewers, a quarterback. He's looked spectacular. I have Cam Ward, a quarterback, as you mentioned, who's looked great. I have Ashton Genty at Boise State, a running back who's just been beastly on the field. I mean, the guy is a monster. He's shredded everyone he played. He gave Oregon a hell of a time last Saturday, and he's just a spectacular fun player to watch. And then I have Travis Hunter from Colorado on there, two-way player, wide receiver, defensive back. He's such a difference maker when he's on the field. He does everything so well, and he's so good. He really has a choice to make going forward. Does he want to play corner in the NFL, or does he want to play wide receiver? Or will there be a spot for him to play both at the next level, which really hasn't been seen in a long time? So those are the kind of guys I think who have started out looking like the best player in the sport.
I would play wide receiver in the NFL. There's more money. How about that?
Yeah.
That's my answer.
Yeah. That's the argument for it, for certain. The wide receiver contracts are massive compared to the corners.
Where would Colorado be if they didn't have Travis Hunter right now?
Well, if you took away Travis Hunter and Shedeur Sanders, you could argue it's a team that would struggle to win a football game. You know, they have a couple other guys on there who are playing okay, but yeah, without Travis Hunter, you'd strip away most of Colorado's potency and big play ability and a lot of their spirit. I mean, he's just a ferocious competitor, and you can tell he brings his teammates along with him. So he just brings a ton of value to that program.
I think about on recruiting day a couple years ago, he was supposed to go to Florida State, and then the last minute he's like, I'm going with Deion Sanders. And that's the first time I really thought about him. And you're right, he is an exceptional talent. I will throw in one for you. It's a long shot. R.J. Harvey at UCF, who ran for 1,400 yards last year, and UCF's going to run the rock a lot this year. I want 1,600 yards from him. So I'm throwing that in there for you, Mark.
Yeah, why not? He's got a game coming up against Florida. You know, if he blows up against Florida, he'll get national attention. So I like that. I like it.
All right, what can we check out, buddy, with your coverage? And I know you're writing your book right now as well. The floor is yours.
Yeah, writing a book. That should be out this spring. This started back in 2021, National Odyssey across the country, went to many of the sport's best rivalries, experienced this stuff in person. It's going to be a history of the sport, detailing its place in American history and culture. It's an extremely unique sport in that way. And it's going to look at where the sport came from and where it's going, which is why this year with the new 12-team playoff, this is the perfect year to publish it afterwards. We're really going to get a look at the future of the sport. So, you know, follow me over at Fifth Down CFB on Twitter, and hopefully people will drop their email on my website, join the newsletter, and yeah, come over on social media and chat it up. I'm there, and I like talking with college football fans.
Mark Schipper, thank you so much for coming on. Have a great day, and I'll talk to you later.
All right, Mark. Appreciate you as always.